Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to yet another episode of LT's Laser Lancer Review. As always, I'm your host, LT. Let's jump right into it. So, our topic today is the Protestant Reformation, fun and exciting times. So, a little background before we jump into the Protestant Reformation. Remember, the Catholic Church is going to be your main religion in Western Europe at this time. They are going to control all aspects of life, and their power is really going to get weakened before this whole thing happens with the whole muddiness of the Crusades and how they didn't win. And everyone said, well, the Pope said we'd win because we have God, but I just saw my buddies get killed and we apparently didn't win, or they won and we won. It's real muddy. So the church is going to lose power there. And then the big thing called the Black Death, when 1/3 of the European population is going to get wiped out. They're going to lose faith in the church because they were told that God would take care of it. So make sure you know that. So one of the causes is the church is going to be the main religion in Western Europe before the Protestant Reformation. The church was selling indulgences. If you don't remember what an indulgence is, you got to make sure you know that before the final. That is when, if I sinned, I would go to a priest, and let's say I murdered a man. And I said, hello, priest, here's $50. And then he'd say, okay, you're good, your sin's away. And this upset people because not everybody has $50. The wealthy was able to do this, and it was like buying your way into heaven. Plus, we know today priests can't just do that. That doesn't work that way. But over time, that'll upset people. And because they were selling indulgences, the Pope and the church were making a lot of money off the people. They're going to be so powerful, and it's going to be so unbalanced on how much money and power the church will have because of this system. All right? So in comes Martin Luther. And it's important to know what Martin Luther's job was before all this, and he was part of the Catholic Church. He was a monk. And back then, before the printing press, a monk's job, his sole purpose in this world, was to write a Bible. Not Bibles, a Bible. It was in Latin, and because they had to write everything by hand, a monk had to produce a Bible. For the most part, that was the main life's work of a monk. And he was reading through the Bible, and he said, well, there's nothing about selling indulgences in here. Like, I got to tell the Pope. And he tells the Pope Clement X, and the Pope goes, oh, I know. I'm in charge of it. What? This big plot twist. So, because of that, the Pope says, you got to stop telling people this, Martin Luther, or we're going to have to exile you from the church. And Martin Luther didn't care. He stuck by his complaints, and it's called the 95 Thesis. You got to make sure you know that. He literally wrote down all 95 problems he had with the Catholic Church and nailed it on to a church door in Germany. That was like their internet back then, because everybody was going to see it. So that upset the Pope. Martin Luther didn't want to start this whole thing. He just wanted to reform the Catholic Church, but he saw the Catholic Church wasn't going to change, so he starts his own religion. So, some main beliefs of Martin Luther. Salvation can be achieved by faith alone. He said you don't need a middleman. You don't need a priest. If you want to be able to get into heaven, you can talk to God on your own. If you just have faith in God, you accept Jesus into your heart, you can get into heaven. You don't need to go to confession. You don't need a priest to talk to God. And his really big thing was the Bible should be translated into all languages. Because before that, and for a long time, still to this day, well, not to this day, till about less than 100 years ago, most Catholic masses were in Latin. That was the language of the Roman Empire when Christianity first came about. Latin was what the Bible was in. Latin was what Mass was in. You generally only knew Latin if you were higher class or part of the church. So your normal people, like farmers, like a French farmer, wouldn't know Latin. It was very rare if he or she did. So Martin Luther said, let the people read the Bible themselves. Put it in whatever language they live in. English. If they live in England, put it in English. They live in France, put it in French, German, all that stuff. Okay? A big thing that is going to help spread Martin Luther's message and to get these Bibles translated in another language, the biggest thing that you could say the Protestant Reformation wouldn't happen without it is the printing press. Without Gutenberg inventing the printing press, you don't have all this mass information spreading, and you don't have literacy rates going up. So that's important to keep in the back of your brain. So our last part is our effects. What's going to happen? New forms of Christianity are going to pop up all throughout Europe. You're going to see Protestants, obviously, and you're going to see Calvinism. Henry VIII is going to start the Church of England. There's going to be all over the place. Different branches of Christianity are going to go all over the place. And the church is going to lose power in Europe. This is going to be the first time since the fall of Rome when the Pope and the church were the top dogs in the doghouse. They're really not going to be anymore. And where's all that power going to go? It's going to go to the monarchs of Europe. So we're going to see a shift of the Pope being the most powerful person in Europe to all the different kings and queens in Europe. So that's really important to know because it's going to pave the road for the rest of history. And then a big thing is we're going to see a lot of conflicts and wars over religion start in Europe. And it's going to be over these different forms of Christianity, mainly between Protestants and Catholics. Even though the Catholic Church was cruel in its nature back in the day in medieval Europe and controlled a lot and was powerful, they were stable. They kept stability at least. Now, because people are thinking for themselves and they want a different form of religion, when two people disagree, that's how a lot of wars always start. So that's something really important to know, that because of the Reformation, it really is going to start this history of wars and conflict in Europe. All right. So that was the Protestant Reformation. As I said in previous videos, this video should not be the only thing you study off of. Please make sure that you study other stuff. Look at your notes. This is just more your appetizer. If I talked too fast, you can always rewind. But of course, we're not done. We need our fun fact. So fun fact, the term Lego comes from the Danish word legot, which sounded French there, but it's not, which means play well. So that's fun. So there you go. All right. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I was LT, and we will see you next time.